Hello folks, welcome to Doing a Tech channel. We are continuing on JavaScript tutorials on using FreeCodeCamp website. In this lesson, we are going to just continue from where we stopped in the previous lesson. Let's just navigate to the tab where we stopped last tutorial, which was the lesson 31. And in this lesson, basically, we are going to introduce the second way how to declare a variable in JavaScript using const instead of let. The difference basically with let, we can declare or to initiate a variable like this example here. With the const, we cannot initiate a variable without assigning it to a value. Always we have to assign the variable to a specific value to be valid. Otherwise, we'll throw an error. Secondly, we will not be able to reassign the same variable to a new value. So const has a specific cases. It's not like let. It's very restricted. So when you declare a single variable using const, you will not reassign the same variable to a new value, and you will not be able to initiate it without assigning it to a value. So that is the difference between const and let. So in this example here, we are going to use const instead of let. It's asking us to replace let instead of using const. For example, if we change this to const, three of them, we change them to const. If you know how to change three of them, you need to click Command D to select three of them, or Control D and then change the value. Now let's just check your code and run. Congratulations, that's your code is passed. Submit the changes and move on to the next lesson. In this lesson, it's telling us that we are ready now to start building our pyramid, but using hello maybe is not a good example for building a pyramid. Instead, we need to use hash. So let's just change hello, and instead of that, change it to hash. And then just check your code. Congratulations, your code passed, and make the changes. I'll move on to the next lesson here, lesson 33. And this is where it will introduce something called for loop. For example, if we need to call a list of logic or list of conditions privately, and then we'll use something called loop in this case. So the syntax of the for loop in JavaScript using this for keyword and then parentheses and then this square bracket. Inside the square bracket will add the logic that we need to be called every time our condition is met. Inside between these parentheses, the first one is the iterator, so this is the start point where the loop will start from, and then the second one is the condition when it will be called every time is true, and the last one is the iterator, so how many times you need to multiply the iterator to be called. For example, start from 1, 2, 3, or from 1, 3, 6, and so on. This is very quick introduction to the for loop in JavaScript. Telling us here on the coming tutorial, we'll learn more about how to use for loop. It is asking us to declare a for loop inside here using iterator, condition, iteration as a string, and empty square bracket. We can use the same one here and just modify the code instead. So we are going to wrap this to be a string using double quotes, and then we need to remove this from here. We don't add any logic for now, and check your code. This will take some second to run. And congratulations, your code passed, and just submit the changes. I'll move on to the next lesson, 34. And here it will explain the first example, the first iterator. And it's, as I mentioned, is this where the loop will start from. And so we change this iterator to a variable. Usually we assign it to a name called just I. This is a convenient way most of the developer will understand what that means. In this case, it's asking us to assign it to 0, start from 0. Instead of this iterator, let's remove it. Let I equal 0. And check your code. Congratulations, your code passed. So submit the changes and move on to the next lesson, 35, where with the introduction to the condition. So basically, as I mentioned, so the loop will be called every time the condition is met. So while the condition is true, the loop will be keep calling. It will log out only when the condition is false. So in this case, we are going to use this less than symbol, which will declare, for example, when count less than 3, then try call the loop, otherwise stop the loop to be called. When I is less than count, just keep the loop being called. Change this condition to when I less than count, keep the condition being called, otherwise exit. So now check your code. Congratulations, your code is passed. Let's submit the changes. And in this example here, where the introduction to the iteration. So as I mentioned, so this repeated loop, for example, start from 1, 2, 3, 4, or from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. In this case, for example, if you wanted to start from 0, 1, 2, and so on, if we wanted to be called from 0, 1, 2, 3, and go on until I is greater than current, then we need to change this I equal to I plus 1. As it's just telling us here to do that. Check your code. Congratulations, your code is passed. Submit the changes and move on to the next lesson. So now to see your loop starting from 0 until 7, because I is less than count. Count is 8. 7 from 0 until 7 is less than 8. But when I reach to 8, then 8 is not less than 8. So the loop will stop working. So we can see that by adding a console log inside here and then try print I. So that is displaying here I start from 0 and stop at 7. And now let's just check your code and submit the changes. And congratulations, your code is passed. And in this lesson, instead of just displaying or printing I, we are going to push I inside this empty rows array. So to store a list of this hash inside this array to build our pyramid. So let's just remove this console. Then, if you remember, we are using push method to push an element to end of an array. In this case, the array is going to be called rows.push. The element we need to push to that array, which I will represent the number of the index of this element, start from 0 until 7. Check your code. Congratulations, your code is passed. And submit the changes and move on to the lesson number 39. And now the code that we created is moved to the top here. All what we need to do here to declare a variable, call it a result, to declare a variable using let keyword instead of const. And the variable name called result, now assign it to empty string, and then add a semicolon. Check your code. Congratulations, your code is passed. Submit the changes. On the next lesson, which is lesson number 40 here, in this lesson number 40, we are going to just to display the result. Just check your code that displaying here the output, displaying nothing. Congratulations, your code has been passed. And submit the changes and move on to the lesson 41, and here where we'll add more logic to build our pyramids. But by now we'll stop at this end of this tutorial. We'll continue in the next tutorial. Thank you for watching and see you in the next tutorial.